LiberalViewer presents.
So several years back, I made a video titled Fox News Worried Its Viewers Can't Tell a Cartoon from News, featuring an interview of Simpsons creator Matt Groening on The Daily Show explaining how his show on Fox Television got in trouble with its parent company that also owns Fox News for the reason he described here.
We had an episode in which we had Fox News, and we had the little news crawl.
Yes.
And that was one of our favorite moments.
Yeah, yes. It was wonderful.
Albert Einstein plus Brad Pitt equals Dick Cheney.
Yes.
That was one of the... Rupert Murdoch, terrific dancer.
Yes.
That was another one. We have been forbidden to do that again. Because the Fox viewer might confuse our cartoon with actual news.
Now, if you watch my video from back then, I actually showed a clip of the Simpsons parody of Fox News that apparently got Matt Groening in trouble, and in addition to the pretty funny, unfair, unbalanced Fox News debate between Republican Krusty the Clown and his liberal opponent, the cartoon parody does also feature a satirical Fox News news crawl at the bottom with joke headlines like Rupert Murdoch, terrific dancer, as Matt Groening mentioned, plus study, 92% of Democrats are gay, and even JFK posthumously joins Republican Party. Now, Fox News, of course, proving itself to be increasingly impossible to parody, last Sunday spent several minutes of airtime coming very close to making that Simpsons episode prophetic when, during coverage of the 50th anniversary of the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, Fox News Sunday host Chris Wallace engaged in the exchange with John F. Kennedy's niece, Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, that you can see here.
There is a growing body of thought that, in fact, that President Kennedy was quite conservative in some of his policies. He was a fierce Cold Warrior. He believed that tax cuts spur the economy. Kathleen?
Well, as you know, Chris, the tax cuts when I was growing up and when you were growing up were 90% at the
tax rates.
Tax rates at the marginal rate. So he lowered it to 70%. So one could say 90% to 70% is not down to 22% now. So I think he was a smart guy and balanced, and he realized that we needed to put more money in the hands of the citizens, and that would help spur the economy. And I think he was right about that. He did not like communism. That is for sure. He believed in freedom and liberty a lot, but he also resisted at almost every turn the generals who wanted to go to war. When they wanted, during the Bay of Pigs, when they wanted to bomb, he said no. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, when the generals wanted to bomb, he said no, because he thought that, as George Kennan had pointed out, that if you have a long twilight struggle in which you could stop communism and then believe in freedom, freedom eventually wins out, which it has.
Now that was a good refutation from Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, because opposing communism doesn't make someone conservative outside of the right-wing world where liberals are communists, and bringing down tax rates from 90 to 70% also isn't supply-side economics, but those facts didn't stop Chris Wallace and Fox News contributor and conservative columnist George Will from returning to the JFK as conservative fallacy after the commercial in this clip.
George, your thoughts about John F. Kennedy's legacy and this growing notion that he, in fact, espoused a lot of conservative values?
Well, he was a conventional liberal before liberalism changed in the late 1960s. He was a Cold Warrior in the tradition of Harry Truman. And domestically, he hired as his Treasury Secretary C. Douglas Dillon, a Republican from Wall Street, and did indeed believe in supply-side tax cuts, increased revenues from lower rates.
Now, believing in increased revenue from lower tax rates doesn't make JFK a supply-sider, as Paul Rosenberg pointed out in his Salon article earlier this month titled, "Stop Calling JFK Conservative, the right-wing's favorite new lie is filled with historical flaws." In fact, giving tax cuts to the middle class is Keynesian demand-side economic theory, unlike the supply-siders' tax cuts for the rich, and as Paul Rosenberg also pointed out, JFK himself rejected this caricature of liberalism in his 1960 speech in which he defined himself as a liberal while running for president that included this passage.
If by liberal they mean, as they want people to believe, someone who is soft in his policies abroad, who is against local government, and who is unconcerned with the taxpayer's dollar, then the record of this party and its members demonstrate that we are not that kind of liberal. But if by a liberal they mean someone who looks ahead and not behind, someone who welcomes new ideas without rigid reactions, someone who cares about the welfare of the people, their health, their housing, their schools, their jobs, their civil rights and their civil liberties, someone who believes that we can break through the stalemate and suspicions that grip us in our policies abroad. If that is what they mean by a liberal, then I'm proud to say that I'm a liberal.
Now, even though I wasn't born when President Kennedy was assassinated, I'm still inspired by that advocacy of liberalism from JFK, the presidential candidate, and what he's talking about there isn't conservatism or republicanism, and certainly isn't the right-wing partisan agenda they pursue over on Fox News, I think, but I want to know what you think. Does JFK's record make it reasonable to classify him as either a conservative or a posthumous Republican? And if it's not reasonable, does this mean Rupert Murdoch is not a terrific dancer?
YouTube, you decide.